So hey, kudos to them on that. I think that's been a great series. But overall, Providence Journal leaves me a little flat these days.
Seemingly. And here we have now, folks, I want to preface our next segment with this notion. There's a level of emotional maturity that most radio shows, in fact, most of the media, would ascribe to most of the serious issues facing the state today. You won't find that at the Coalition. In fact, one of our favorite segments is hosted by a gentleman by the name of Mike Riley. We like to call it Rhode Island, How Screwed Are We? Mike, are you out there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Mike, welcome back to the Coalition. Mike just appeared a few weeks ago. If you go up onto iHeartRadio, look at the Coalition, you'll see a show that we did with Judge Flanders, with Providence mayoral candidate Harrop, and Mike Riley, where we had an in-depth analysis of the bankruptcy or the seemingly imminent bankruptcy facing the city of Providence. Mike is a frequent contributor to Go Local Prov. His R.I. Shrugs is a must-see, must-read, must-listen-to piece that's written with a focus on the technical analysis underlying the financial situation surrounding both Providence and the state of Rhode Island. Mike, Mike, how screwed are we?
Well, it depends on, who we're talking about as we. I think very soon Providence is going to have a substantial problem in being able to finance as it currently is, and that's not actually that great. And we're going to have to squeeze out some of the services and or raise taxes. I know none of you can believe that. Or as Dan Harrop describes, go into receivership. And additionally, also affecting the finances of Providence, Rhode Island, is the pension plan, which in the recent stock market collapse has lost about 15% of the funds that it had in the plan. In fact, it's blown the entire ARC payment for last year in about 10 days.
Excellent. Excellent news. Mike, we actually talked about that when you were on the Coalition Live a few weeks ago, the whole notion that and it's interesting because you live the market, and clearly we have been in bubble territory for a while again, and the fact that this bubble philosophy or environment exists every 3 to 4 years to me is astonishing because our short-term memory seems to not exist anymore. And yet here we are. We said, well, maybe in the next year something could happen. Well, it happened within a matter of weeks. We talked last time about the burn rate, and for folks who aren't hardcore-driven capitalists like myself or Mike, the burn rate is very simple. It's at what rate are you spending money more quickly than you're taking it in? What rate are we burning money? So do you have any concept at all right now about what the burn rate is in Providence?
I do, but it's relative to the pension plan, which I think is what we have to focus on, because when that collapses, that's going to cause the city to collapse. And unfortunately, as the former Judge Flanders said, that will tip us towards having the state taxpayer actually bail out Providence instead of the Providence taxpayer.
Because essentially there really is no Providence taxpayer left anymore, is there?
And the legislature, as of their June midnight fix this year, pretty much established 75% as what we have to maintain of any previous workers' rights as far as the municipality is concerned, which means the state bites 75% of Providence's problem.
Right. Dave Fisher has joined us this week. Dave, you have a question?
Yeah, Mike. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Sure.
I think I see this pension crisis as really a historical problem. This is, administration after administration, whether it be on the state or municipal level, weren't funding these to the level that they should have been. And then on the back end, the investments were made in somewhat questionable and risky funds. So, quick and dirty, can you give us like a percentage-wise, like how much of it has to do with the non-funding on the municipal and state level, how much of it has to do with the bubbles that burst on the other end?
Okay, so where there are problems nationwide, it's almost always the biggest issue is lack of funding, that the politician promised something and then never funded it.
Mm-hmm.
So And that's true in Providence, and that's true in Rhode Island. Providence is far worse than the state. Providence's funding is the worst in America, and they really stick out like a sore thumb. But in addition to that, knowing that how underfunded, the choices they made for investment, also, if you think you're near bankruptcy, these people are very aggressive in their investment portfolio, with the biggest investment in a hedge fund that doesn't hedge. And so we're sitting with a portfolio that basically dropped a little bit more than the market did because they're in small cap stocks. And the only reason they have any cash at all, in my mind, is because of that burn rate that you were talking about, and that the pension fund is actually paying out $90 to $100 million in benefits every year, and the normal cost, which is the contributions coming in from the city and the workers, is closer to $25 million. So you're at a negative $75 million right off the bat.
Wow.
Now they have a legacy cost, which is known as the pension liability, which Tavares claims through magic math, I call it lying, around $900 million. The real legacy cost is $2.3 billion. And that $2.3 billion eventually has to get paid back into the plan to support the promises they've made. And the current plan only pays back, assuming a $900 million legacy, and around $65 million a year. So the $65 million plus the $25 million gets you to $90 million. And if they actually make those ARC payments, the payments we're talking about that are never made, if they actually make those, they still lose $10 million a year. And that's if the pension fund assets don't decline.
Okay, and this is the whole ball of wax, including the OPEBs?
No.
Okay, so the OPEBs are aside from this.
$1.2 billion.
Okay, wow, unbelievable.
Yes, there's no hope, and that's why receivership actually makes sense.
Right. Now you've been openly critical about the situation revolving around the pension management issue in terms of our advisors. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, it's funny. I think I broke a little news last time I talked to you. The current advisor to our pension plan is a group called Wainwright Investment Counsel, LLC. And it's one particular guy. I won't go into it right now, but this guy was hired by Buddy Cianci in 1995. No other mayor, no other administration has even put out an RFP. To me, this is just, lackadaisical. It's an indication that none of our mayors had any idea about economics and the stock market.
Well, or as we say here on the Coalition, denial ain't a river in Egypt. I mean, Mr. Tavares is, let's just say, Mr. Tavares wouldn't get the gold star for attendance either at a number of the meetings that are routinely held.
Well, we have a pension crisis commission on municipalities that Mayor Tavares didn't even attend.
Is this the hope, I guess?
And he was an appointed member.
Now, was it, as part of his doomed campaign and his doomed political career, do you think this was just an attempt to hide and obfuscate?
I think the fact that he announced he wasn't going to be mayor anymore, about 2 years into his campaign, I think he realized what's going on there. The question you have to ask is, why didn't he tell anybody else?
Well, I mean, clearly one of the Democratic strategies in the city of Providence is to, hide. Right. And the key, though, is you're actually supposed to win your next election. Your exit strategy. If you're going to play Baby Doc Duvalier of Providence, Rhode Island, you actually have to have someplace in France to go to.
I think more importantly for Angel Tavares' campaign, somebody should have told him that the whole thing that happened with David Cicilline was a total flash in the pan, and probably lightning doesn't strike twice.
Right? Yeah. It's
and it's true. He was handed a Category 5, but he should have been paying enough attention to know that he was. Well, and the second thing is, he turned around and endorsed him. So,
Well, I mean, clearly, and we mentioned this on the show a few weeks ago, if he had had the political cojones to actually declare bankruptcy within a couple of months into his term, wouldn't most of this have been avoided?
I think that a reset in Providence would be phenomenally good for the state of Rhode Island.
Elaborate, please.
Well, it's like a reset. It's like a start over. You clean the slate. Now, who gets hurt? The unions do get hurt in that one. and probably the state taxpayer to a certain extent. But when you go in and you try to draw up plans for building and creating opportunity like on the waterfront, like everyone is talking about, you'll actually have an ability to finance. You'll actually have people who want to be here because they don't have this overhang of stuff that wasn't ever taken care of.
Well, now, in your intro into the show, you talked about this profoundly impacting, and that's my words, profoundly impacting both Providence and ultimately Rhode Island's ability to finance. What I find fascinating is the near-death obsession with paying off 38 special because it might affect our way to finance future debt. Yet at the same time, we seem to be ignoring the true elephant in the room, which is the pension system.
Yeah, and I'm only talking about one city, Providence. $3.3 billion they're going to have to come up with. And these guys, this coalition of insiders, made this big campaign about paying $12 million to save our rating. The only reason Providence isn't bankrupt right now is because a law passed in 2011 that said bondholders themselves will have first lien on taxes. And that's the only reason we're still hanging on to a B AAA rating in Providence.
Wow. What does this mean in terms of our cost of borrowing? Where is Providence's cost of borrowing? Here's the question I don't think any mayoral candidate is willing to answer right now. Where does, relative to other cities of its size, where do we rank in the cost of borrowing as a city?
Well, a bunch of cities are similar to it, but we'd be among the worst. It depends on the term and the maturity. But let's talk about pension obligation bonds, for example, which I'm sure Buddy is going to go to and are a horrible idea. But pension obligation bonds, they'd probably be borrowing in the neighborhood of 5.5% to 6%.
Wow. Yeah, and on top of that, add a potential reamortization of the liability in and of itself. Is that something that's legally available to them at this point?
Well, basically what GASB 68, which is the government part of the Accounting Standards Board, GASB 67 and 68 have kind of put a 30-year limit and have warned against reamortization. So, I guess it's up to the finance director. In Providence, he seems to be fast and loose. So I guess it's Mancini. I'm not sure who the finance director actually is right now. But they have some latitude in trying to do something like this. But I imagine it'll hurt their ratings and they wouldn't do anything.
Well, Mike, thanks as always for coming on. Mike, professionally, where can we find Michael Riley these days?
You just Rhode Island Shrugs blogspot.com is my blog, and I also run a group called Coastal Management Group, which does pension advice. We're working with Jacksonville, Florida right now. Providence is pretty much shot. I don't think we can do anything with that.
And somehow after our conversation of the last few weeks, I don't know that they're going to be calling anytime soon.
Well, yeah, maybe not.
Maybe not. Well, Mike, again, thanks for coming on the show. Hope to see you again in studio soon. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay.
Well, we've only got a couple of seconds before the break. The next half hour is going to be an Ethan Fest. Ethan, after hearing great news like that, first of all, welcome to the show. We're going to give you a full chance to introduce yourself after the break.
Sure.
But what's your, as a potential state legislator, what's your reaction?
My reaction is it's a hell of a mess, and we need a new approach up there on Smith Hill. Some people that have been out in the economy, have some real-life experience with budgets, living within budgets, and aren't just people who are kind of floating around in the NGOs or kind of happily within academia. We need people up there that have that real-world experience. We pride ourselves here on the show in sort of a jovial way of presenting the numbers in a very stark format. Had you heard the numbers presented to you in exactly that format before? Not in so stark of terms, no. But you don't see that very often.
No, it's unfortunately. There were a number of us that were hoping that Mr. Riley would run for state office. Professional considerations aside, he's chosen not to at this point. He is exactly the sort of bitter pill that the state needs at a point like this. Someone like him as general treasurer or even governor would have an astonishing impact on the state. It's time for adults really to join the fray. we've been preaching this. I personally have been preaching this on talk radio for in excess of probably 15 years. The collective yawn that I would